Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I was always curious what happens in the classroom next to me. And since I am here at the University of Warwick, I am curious what happens in classrooms around the world, and this is what this series is all about. And in this episode, I have a very close friend of mine, John Paul from Rwanda. Thank you very much for coming here, John Paul.
Thank you for having me, Suyog.
So let's start with your hometown in your country. Could you tell more about your hometown in your country?
I actually live in Kigali, the capital city of Rwanda.
Mhm.
Yeah, Rwanda, to start with, Rwanda is a small country, 26,000 kilometers square. Yeah, you understand, even the capital city is not that big. I understand it's not the same thing as New Delhi or some other bigger places. You know, it's a small capital city, but it's very clean. Today we are ranked the first, the cleanest city in
Wow.
Africa.
Wow, that's great.
It's very secure, it's very safe. You see, the government has done a lot of things to secure the whole country, and I think people should come to see my country, especially my city. It's one of the best of Africa.
Lovely. Thank you very much for this. So let's go down the memory lane and start with your childhood experiences. So, can you tell at what age were you admitted to your school and your schooling journey?
Uh, uh, I went to school for the first time when I was 5 years old. That time it was école maternelle. That was the nursery. It was in the time it was in French. But I was not very lucky to finish the nursery school because it was actually a program for 1 year. That time it was not very common to have 3 years like today we have. Because that time the genocide is we had the genocide. It cut my schooling time. My 1 year program, and I couldn't finish my 1 year program. When the school resumed after the genocide, I had to start with the primary one.
Okay.
Yeah, primary one. I was 6.5 or 7, around 7 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did my primary school in Kinyarwanda. It was, of course, my mother tongue. Until primary 6, actually. But during the primary studies, we had some French lessons. It was taught as a subject, but I never had contact with English. I only had contact with English when I was in secondary school.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
how long is primary school in Rwanda? For how many years?
It goes for 6 years.
Okay. And after 6 years, you were admitted to secondary?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And was it the same school or different school?
No, that time, it's not like today. Today, you can go for, you can study in primary school and you continue the secondary school at the same school. So that time we had to change and go to a different school. So I went to a junior seminary. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Junior seminary, it's a school which is linked to the clergy. It's like linked to the priests. It's actually where they prepare the people who are they were preparing us for the priesthood actually afterwards.
Wow.
So I went there for secondary school, but it was not actually mandatory to go on and become a priest. You could have your secondary studies and afterward go your other way or choose to continue to the priesthood.
Okay.
So
Coming back to your primary schooling, what were the subjects you learned as a primary school children?
we had of course, we had literacy. From primary 1 to primary 3, we had to study how to write, how to read those basic numbers, how to calculate 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000. That's from primary 1 to primary 3. So from primary 4 to primary 6, that's where we start with the more complex courses like geography. Like French, that's when the French was introduced to me. I can't imagine of anything else that I did.
So as you said, French was introduced in primary 4.
Yeah.
For primary 1, 2, and 3, you everything you studied that was in your mother tongue.
Yeah, from primary 1 to primary 3, everything is in the mother tongue. Even actually, from primary 1 to primary 6,
Uh-huh.
at that time everything was in the mother tongue, except for French as a subject.
Okay.
Yeah.
And English was not at all in that.
No. It was something very new.
Okay. And generally, how many students used to be in a single class?
If I recall, I think there were more than 50 of us in a single classroom. Yeah, more than that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And when-
I remember the class was always crowded.
And were there different teachers for different subjects, or one teacher teaching all subjects?
Oh, that I think it's still the same today.
Mhm.
That the one teacher teaches all the subject from Monday to Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, and from primary 1 to primary 6, one teacher teaches
Wow,
everything.
wow. I mean, it's almost the same in my context.
Oh yeah.
What about your secondary education? Tell us more about your secondary.
Secondary education. That's where I think things started becoming kind of more serious. We started to study in French.
Oh my God.
Before in primary school, French was taught as a subject, but when we entered the secondary studies, yeah, everything was taught in French. I remember, even though I had done some French as a subject, but I was not that fluent.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't understand people. I had never been exposed to people speaking French from Monday to Friday. That was the first challenge, and English was introduced to me as well. I had the very first contact with English. I used to hear English on radio, but I was not very interested in that. That's where I had contact with many other things like chemistry, physics.
Okay.
That was the first time, and also Latin was introduced.
Oh my God.
Latin, basic Latin. Yeah, and of course, because it was a boarding school, everything we were supposed to live in French, in the French system, and everything was done in French. We go to pray. We were praying in French, and we go to play during game time. We were supposed to be doing everything in French. So I was immersed in French, but at first I would have to admit that it was not really that easy.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
totally understand.
but with the time, I think after 1 year, I was in a good line.
Great.
Yeah.
So at that time, you studied 4 different languages, like French, English, Latin, and your mother tongue.
Yeah. That's it. That's true.
Okay. And apart from that, you had these maths, science means physics, chemistry, biology maybe,
Yeah, in history.
civics. Apart from this, any other subject?
I can't think of any other subject.
Maybe arts, music.
Yeah. Also music was introduced. I could read music. That's the time I was introduced to music. I could read. This how we write music. I could read.
Lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, some of it has gone.
So
Yeah.
you spoke about this type of school, where the priest schools. Apart from that, what other schools were there?
In the neighborhood,
Yeah, like
yeah, we have other public schools. Public schools which are owned by the government. Yeah, we also have other private schools or owned by individuals or associations of parents.
Okay.
But mainly at that time, people trusted these schools, which were kind of related to the priests, to the clergymen. They thought that these people would offer more values.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you studied primary for 6 years. How long was the secondary for you?
Secondary was also 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was there an exam after 12th year of education?
Yeah, of course. After primary education, there is an exam. Yeah. Primary leaving exam. After secondary 3, there is another exam, which is after the we call it the ordinary level. Yeah, there is another exam from which you get admitted to the A level, advanced level. And of course, after the advanced level, after the 6th year, you also you take another exam. Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm right, after the primary leaving exam,
Yep.
based on these grades, you get admitted to secondary school. Is it right?
Yeah, but in my case, because of course, as I told you, I went to the priest school. There was a specific test by the priest. I had to
Okay.
take, of course, I took 2 exams. I took the exam set by the priest because I wanted to join the school, but also I took
Primary living.
the primary living exam set by the government.
Okay. So this concept of levels is quite new to us. We don't have these levels. So could you tell more about this ordinary level, A level, and these levels?
Ordinary level, those are the first 3 years of the secondary education, where you're supposed to take all the courses. It's like general level where you take all the courses, those two courses that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Sciences, humanities, everything, languages, everything. So after you've taken the exam to leave the ordinary level, you are admitted to an option. I mean, given a specific option, which is kind of limited to a small number of subjects.
Okay.
You can go to arts, you can go to sciences, you can go to whatever you want actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I chose to go for arts. I did, it was in French, Latin et langue moderne. That was Latin and modern languages. That's what I chose. But other people could go for biology and chemistry. But there was biochemistry, which also had some physics and mathematics on their program. The other could go for maths and physics. So that's the A level. That's where you take specific. You start to major specific subjects.
This is for 3 years, and at the end of these 3 years, you appear for exam.
Yeah, at the end of the 3 years of the A level, you take the exam. Yeah, the exam, it's also a national exam.
Oh my God.
Yeah, all the exams I've been talking about are the national exams.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a national exam. After that, you can get admitted to the university, or if you don't have the required mark, you will maybe go to a private university. But for the public university, you have to get the required mark from the national exam.
So you completed your graduation from the university?
Yeah.
Okay. How long was the graduation? 3 years or 4 years?
It was 4 years. Yeah, but of course, between the secondary education and the university education, there is one gap year.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to, while you were waiting for the result, the national exam result, you are relaxing. Either you're relaxing the family or you get some small job. Yeah, that time I became a French teacher during that gap time. I became a French teacher. French was my first subject to teach.
Wow.
I was professeur de français.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
For 1 year.
After your graduation, is there some other course you have to take to become a teacher?
So it depends. Some people can take other courses, but like for example, in my case, I had not done education. I had not had any contact with teaching experience and whatsoever. So because there was a shortage of teachers at that time, and of course I have to, maybe it's kind of, I'm going to call it something between quotation marks. At that time, I graduated actually from university in 2012. And that's the time when it was like a transition from French as a medium of instruction to English as a medium of instruction. So there was a shortage of teachers. Teachers who were used to teaching in French, most of them couldn't go on teaching in English. So teachers who could speak English were really needed on the market.
Okay.
So that's why most of the students who graduated in my time became teachers in that way, even though they had not done education. Now you understand that was in 2012. 2015, I had to take a postgraduate diploma in education to be a qualified teacher.
Okay.
So it took me 3 years. Oh no, to take the program. The program was taken during 1 year, but I had to wait for 3 years to take that.
I get it.
Yeah.
So this is postgraduate diploma in teaching. Apart from that, what other courses are offered for teachers? Like, what if I want to be a teacher? What are different courses that I can do?
Actually, you can either go. Okay, you don't need a postgraduate diploma in education if you have done your bachelor in education. But Yeah, for example, students who go to it was the Kigali Institute of Education. Those students after graduation they go straight to work. They don't need any other training. So apart from that, I'm not sure there is any other.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm not. I don't think there is any other.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was all about your educational journey as a student. Could you tell more about your career as a teacher?
As a teacher, of course, as I told you, I started as a French teacher after graduating from my secondary education, but it was only for 1 year. And I enjoyed that. Actually, I was very anxious at the beginning because you understand it was the first thing, and I was very young. I was a teacher when I was 18. I was teaching. Most of the students I was teaching that time, they were my age or even other were older than me. It was enjoyable. I was quite respected, even though I was right. Maybe it depends on the attitude I had towards my students. I believe that cooperation was the key. When the students realize that you are cooperating with them, you are not opposing, you are willing to listen to them. Most of the time, I realized that they will cooperate. So after graduation from university, I went straight to secondary education. As I told you, we were very much needed. And there is a time when Rwanda was investing very much in education for all, building many schools at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, I started as an English teacher, 2012. I was working in a school of general education. Is opposite to what I'm working in today. Today I'm working in technical education. So I worked there in general education for seven years from 2012 to 2018. Yeah, 7 years. I really enjoyed that. At first, I was teacher of upper secondary. It was like in the A level. Later on, they realized that there was, there was a need for a teacher in the lower secondary, the ordinary level. So I was there. So most of my time I spent it in the lower secondary level, teaching of English, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed how my students, my younger students, could call me Uncle Paul. I was very, I enjoyed being a parent. I had that feeling of a parent, and I always taught them, as your parents sent you to me, I am a replacement for them. They would always say Uncle Paul. So English teaching also, I realized that students had started speaking English, and it was not like in the time when we were studying English. When we were studying English, we were not very concerned with English. Actually, we couldn't speak that much English. But at least when I was teaching my young students, they spoke really okay. They were not speaking very good English, but they were willing to learn. So contrary to the mature students, I think mature students that I'm teaching these days, they're not very much motivated as the younger students I had that time. I enjoyed that time. Yeah, and 2018, I had to move to another job, of course. The job I'm doing today, it's I'm acting as an assistant lecturer at Rwanda Polytechnic. It's a technical school, as you can understand. And I'm teaching both the tertiary level students and secondary level. It's a school that has got both systems. So it has the secondary education and has tertiary education.
So this school you work, technical school, is it like totally different branch of education? Like do they have something common with the secondary school you studied and this one?
You mean because we have two parts actually, as I told you.
Okay.
We have two parts. There is a part of secondary education. I work there, and there is another part of tertiary education. So if I start with the secondary school, technical secondary school, actually that's how we call it, TSS. Yeah. It's quite different because regarding the motivation of my students, of course, vis-a-vis English, or vis-a-vis the language in general. So these are the students who are not very much motivated as the students that I used to have before, because they believe that things that they should be doing are practical things. They are very immersed in their practical workshops.
Yes.
You know, getting their attention to learn the language is very, it's very hard. They are very busy in their workshops. When the time for the workshop comes, they are very happy. When the time for other generic subject comes, you know. So I think I have to work a lot harder than I used to just to get their motivation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell a few more interesting initiatives, maybe by your country, maybe by institution, or maybe by you, that you think are useful for us?
If I start with my previous job, I would say I took quite a few initiatives, which include starting a debate club in my school. I think I already told you about that. Yeah, I really think that had a good impact on my students, and I can see some of my students who really improved their English because of that. Yeah, I started that as actually a trial and error. I was trying something new. I was new in the field of education. I hadn't even done education that time. Yeah, but it really succeeded, and that time I remember I even happened to convince the administration of my school to have an afternoon off, at least one afternoon off during the week. So it was on Wednesday. So we could reserve that. We could keep that for the debating activities. You know, this spoken activity, speaking skills activities. Yeah, and other things that I try to do, it's like, for example, to improve my students' writing skills. I remember I had asked my student to have at least a notebook, a 32-page notebook, in which they would write their stories, their essays, because I would give them a lot of writing assignments, and some of which I was not even willing to mark because there were so many, but at least I knew they were working on that. So students, at that time, I had asked them to to have that book, and at least if you happen to have your notebook full of things, whatever you write, whatever happens to your mind, whether it's a poem, or whether it's a story that you would like to write in English, whether anything, not even regarding my assignments that are okay, it may be including my assignments, but not exclusively my assignments. So if they happen to have it full, I would give them some 5 marks additional to their examination mark. Yeah, and it really helped my students. I could say they were good. Most of them become good writers, you know, due to that. Yeah, even though I couldn't have enough time, you cannot have enough time to read like a 200 students book. If you happen to have like four or five classes of 50 students, you understand it. That's even more than 200 students. Yeah, if they all happen to have full notebook with the stories, you understand you cannot read all of them. At least all you do is to look at what they've written and appreciate and show them that, and at least maybe read one or two stories. Yeah. But at least it increased the motivation of my students. They realized that I was interested in improving their English, and yeah. So, of course, as we keep talking, if I remember any other initiative that I might have taken, I will tell you. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share? Maybe.
Why don't I think of anything? I don't know. Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for joining us here, and thank you very much for all these inputs. Those are really helpful to us, and it definitely gave us a sneak peek about how education happens in Rwanda. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, thank you, my friend Soyo. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks. Cheers.